Bandsaw is used to cut curves in wood, so make sure that you have your curves and your lines clearly drawn. You need to know where you're going to be cutting because you want to keep your fingers out of the line of cut. Your line of cut is wherever you're going to be cutting. Okay, so keep your fingers out of the line of cut. For the test, it's 2 inches. Okay, you need to keep your fingers away 2 inches, all right, from the line of cut. All right, the bandsaw goes in a circle, round and round. There's nothing holding the blade on except tension. That's it. The tension's set with this knob right here, so you don't want to play with this knob at all because it releases the tension on the blade. Blade comes off. You've got problems. Okay. Also, make sure the doors are clearly closed. If the doors are not closed and the blade were to come off, it's going to snap out this way. Danger zone on a bandsaw is going to be in this area here. You don't want to stand here watching someone cut. Okay, because if the blades were to come off, this is where they'll come out. Okay. Most likely that won't happen because the door should be closed and the blade should be enclosed within the doors, but just in case, it's kind of nice to know that we have those closed. Okay? We do have a miter gauge for this guy to cut dowel rods. Dowel rods are the round stock that we have. Okay. For the test, it asks for a V block. We don't have a V block. Okay, but for the test, you need to know it's a V block. V as in victory. Okay. We use a miter gauge in here. I feel it's just as safe. We don't have a V block, so that's what we use. Okay? All right. You will always adjust this saw for your wood. Just like you're adjusting the mortiser for your wood, you must adjust this saw for your wood. Everybody needs to know how to do this. Okay? On the back of the bandsaw, there's a knob right here. I know it's kind of in a bad position because of this guy right here. This is kind of a new knob I'm not used to. It's a tensioning knob for the wheel. Don't touch that one either. But you do want to go ahead and loosen up that guy and you want to slide it up and down. How far? According to the test, 1/8 inch to 1/4 inch above the wood. So in other words, you don't want it on the wood. The scroll saw is the one we have on the wood because it helps hold the wood down. You don't want it on the wood because then we can't move it very easily. You just want it just above the wood, about 1/4 of an inch. So what I always do is I set the guard right on top of the wood. I raise it up just a little bit. I tighten it down. I make sure my wood will freely go through, and I'm good to go. For the test, 1/8 inch to 1/4 inch is what you need to have on that. Okay? Bandsaw is used to cut curves in wood, so I've set a series of curves here that I'm going to cut. Some of them quite sharp. Okay? Now, when they talk about this a lot in the test, you need relief cuts to cut sharp corners or radiuses. Okay? So I'm going to cut this sharp radius here and show you where a relief cut is. A relief cut is cutting straight in and straight out with the blade running. Okay, cutting straight in and straight out. I'll cut a relief cut here. I usually like to go ahead and mark them so I know where I'm going to be cutting. I'm going to cut a relief cut straight in and straight out to my line, but not over the line, so that way I can be able to cut this sharp radius, because it's pretty hard to cut a sharp radius all the way through with certain blade types, and that is a test question. Okay, how do you know which blade you should use? It depends on the radius of your cut. Test question. How do you know which width of blade you should use? It depends on the radius of your cut. We have various blades. Tyler, is that blade still back there sitting on the ground? Yeah, go grab that one, Tyler. It's on the ground. It's a pretty wide blade. It's on the floor. Okay, I'll get it. That's okay. All right. This one's a 1/2 inch blade. It's not used for cutting very sharp radiuses. I have a 1/4 inch blade on the bandsaw right now. It's used for cutting little sharper radiuses. I purposely changed the blade on this bandsaw. Because we're going to be cutting a little sharper radiuses than the BT1 kids were, or the Woods 1 kids. I'm sorry. Woods 1 were not cutting very sharp radiuses. They only needed just a very shallow radius, and so they had a wider blade on here. I changed the blade to a little smaller width, okay, for you, so you can have a little sharper radius. Okay? Alright, let's cut this relief cut. I need to set the guard again, since I've adjusted it up. I should never see you cutting on the bandsaw like this. Okay? There's too much of the blade exposed. It's too easy to get something cut. Well, this machine is very easy to use. This is the one machine I've seen the most injuries on in my 9 years teaching Woods 2 classes. Okay? Because they forget how sharp it is. The bandsaw is actually used in the meat cutting industry to cut all your steaks and all your other meat, and they cut right through bone. Okay, it's very, very sharp. It turns very, very fast, and it's going to cut something very easily. Okay, so let's set the guard again just to be safe. 1/8 inch above the wood. Boom. Got it. Okay, cut a relief cut if you think you need one. Straight in and straight out. And that's the only way you can back out of a cut. It's a straight cut. Okay? You cannot back out of a curved cut. Alright? If you back out of a curved cut, you're going to pull the blade off the wheels. Test question. Okay? You will pull the blade off the wheels. Remember, the only thing holding that blade on is tension. Okay? So if you're in a curved cut and you start backing out, you're going to start pulling that blade right off the wheels, especially if the wheels are turning. Okay? Nick, get where you can see. Ryan, get where you can see. Especially this area here. Okay? Alright, so now that I have my relief cut, I can go ahead and cut to that relief cut, and that piece should pop out. And it'll relieve the pressure on the blade. That's why it's called a relief cut. Okay? Always try to leave your line, because we're going to sand to your line with other tools and machines. Okay? So, we want to have both hands out of the line of cut. Our line of cut's the blade here. You want to use your opposing hand, okay, to turn it and twist it. I'm leaving my line. Boom. Relief cut. You can now take it out because that piece of wood falls out there. Test question, never reach in there, grab a piece of wood. Okay, don't use your fingers. What I try to do, and the safest thing to do, is let's stop. Take a piece of scrap wood, pop it out of there. Okay? That's all for the test. Now, if you use your scrap wood, just go ahead and lightly tap things out of there. That should be okay. I'm okay with that as long as you use scrap wood. Don't use your fingers. Even in this close range, I want to make sure we keep our fingers away from that blade. Okay? So there's the relief cut there. Now, on this type of curve, I won't need a relief cut. I can just cut it straight through. I'm in the middle of a cut. I start messing up. Can I back out? Why not? Yeah, I'm going to pull that blade. You see it starting to come off? Okay? And it'll just pop right off of there. Okay? So we need to be careful. Now, when can you back out? Relief cut, because it's straight. It's straight. Okay? Here's a sharper radius. I'm going to cut this here because I'm a little bit long. This sharp radius, I'm going to need a couple relief cuts. Cut to my line. Cut another one across here. Straight in and straight out is the key. This is if you're going to have really sharp radiuses. Okay? Now when we cut this, alright, we should be able to relieve the pressure along the way. Pop. Pressure's relieved. Pressure's relieved. If you start messing up and you want to stop and you're in a curved cut, test question, what should you do?
Turn it off.
Yeah, just turn it off. Let it come to a complete stop. Do you have a question? If you have a question, that's fine, but let me get through my demonstration so I know I've covered it. Once I know I've covered it, then I know I've done my job, okay? Okay, if you do want to stop in a curved cut, stop the saw completely. Go ahead and then back it out then. It won't pull the blade off because there's enough tension on it. There's enough tension on it to... Can you stop with that, please? Thank you. Alright? And it won't pull the blade off, okay? But don't pull it out while it's running and you're in a curved cut. Okay. The biggest thing I see and the biggest kind of fear I get is when you're cutting near the end of a cut. Let's say you're cutting this cut here, curved cut, and you're cutting near the end of the cut. This is what I really hate seeing and I get a little nervous about, okay? That's what I get nervous. You see what's happening here? Okay, where should your hands be now? They should be at least 2 inches away. So where are we going to put our hands now? Let's put them in the back and then pull it through. Okay? Pull it through. Now, careful here too. If you're pushing hard and you end your cut, what's going to happen? It's going to jump forward. Yeah, so we've got to be real careful here to kind of ease up near the end of your cut. So you don't push it forward. Okay? Whenever you're pushing something really hard, all of a sudden the pressure is released, your hands are going to go forward. So put your hands in back for that type of cut. Alright, let me make sure I covered everything here. When using the bandsaw, make sure you apply even forward pressure, but not too much pressure. Okay? Backing out of a cut in the bandsaw, we talked about that. We're pulling the blade off the wheels. We talked about how far the bandsaw guard should be above the wood. Okay? Wear eye protection, of course. How far should you keep your fingers away from the line of cut? 2 inches. Okay? When cutting irregular shapes in the bandsaw, we talked about we're going to use a miter gauge, but what's the test question going to ask? V block. Sure. Okay. Oh, I'm sorry. Irregular shapes is relief cuts. Dowel rods are the V block. Okay. Okay. Don't use your hands or fingers. Okay, to get stuff out of here. If you need to back out of a stock of a cut, we need to go ahead and shut the machine off. We talked about that. There's 12 questions, so don't forget there's questions on the back. What if the blade breaks? And it does happen from time to time. All of a sudden okay, you should turn the machine off. Okay, let it stop, and yeah, call me right over because I got to put the new blade on pretty quickly for you guys. Okay. The correct width is determined by what? What's it determined by?
Radius.
The radius of your cut you're going to use, okay? And why is it unsafe to cut with a dull blade? Let's think about that. Dull blade.
It won't all the way cut.
Okay? When it's dull, what are you going to have to do as an operator? You're going to have to push harder. And then when you push harder, you might have your hand slip, okay, into the blade, or remember when you end a cut, you might jump a little bit further because it's dull. You want to use a nice sharp blade. Okay? Questions on the bandsaw? Fun machine to use. I love using the bandsaw. Okay? All right, let's take your test.